raises serious questions about his mental capacity.
Those statements are just absurd, just pure fantasy.
This is a man, he didn't become the president by accident.
I can tell you he's got the wherewithal to do things that no politician's been able to do, and in a good way.
In just a few hours, the president will be speaking at the American Farm Bureau Convention in Nashville.
The first time in 25 years, a sitting president, has said yes to that invitation.
NBC joining the 2020 push on Twitter, tweeting nothing but respect for our future president.
Well, maybe she'll one day be president of NBC, but she's not going to be president of the United States.
It's college football's big night. Alabama takes on the Georgia Bulldogs for the national title.
I think Georgia's going to surprise a lot of people. I think they've surprised people this whole year.
And a little bit of chicken fried. Cold beer on a Friday night. A pair of jeans that fit just right. And the radio.
That image in our big screen is of 601 Nashville, Tennessee, where at 1 o'clock this afternoon, the President of the United States is going to go out to Joint Base Andrews, get into his 747, fly out to Nashville, talk to the 99th annual American Farm Bureau.
7,000 farmers are going to be there to hear him. And as we said in the open, this is the first time in 25 years that a sitting president has said yes to that invitation. They ask the president every single year.
He said yes to the address.
Yes, he did. Many of them got him elected. I mean, the majority of these farmers probably voted for him because that's Central America. That's what America's made of.
And since we played that song, I didn't hear anything you guys said. I've only been thinking about chicken fried steak.
Doesn't that sound good?
And they do it so well down there in Nashville, I bet. And we happen to have someone who might be able to bring us chicken fried steak. I don't know, Brian, you're at a diner in Nashville. You're always asking me what I'm eating. I need to ask you what the specialty is on the menu there.
Right. I am not giving that away yet, Pete. I know you'd want me to, but I want to leave people all the way to the end at 8:30 Eastern Time before I tell them. If you want a T-shirt, they range from $12 to $26. The Pancake Pantry. I walk the line is a phrase. The workers are just getting in. Right, workers? You're happy? You're well paid? Everyone happy? Everyone happy back there? I got them in an hour and a half early just for you people.
Hey, Brian.
And the Pancake Pantry is nestled between Vanderbilt and Belmont University. And this is their hot sauce. There you go. Which is half done, which is a good sign.
What do they taste
it for?
What is their specialty? What is their breakfast specialty?
Hey guys, if you had a specialty, what would your specialty be? What are people known for? What do you know?
So, sweet potato pancakes.
Sweet potato pancakes.
Ooh, that sounds good. Right, you got
cinnamon cream syrup.
Yum.
Okay, sweet
Brian,
potatoes aren't
right
just
now.
for Thanksgiving anymore.
Order one right now so you can have one in a half an hour. That's it?
There it is.
Hey guys,
On
do you have
demand.
any? Can I have a sweet potato pancake? And you have a half hour to make it. Steve's giving you 30 minutes. Short order cooks need 30 minutes. That's like a vacation. But no, this is a fantastic little town. As you know, that you guys stuck me in a place that is one of the fastest growing cities in all of America. 100 people move here a day, many of which come here. Mostly small business owners I talk to, and I've been here for 3 or 4 days with my family. I was here Friday and Saturday. Everyone's booming. And they just feel as though the economy is affecting them down in Washington. And the president will be speaking at 4 o'clock today. And he's going to be going for the first president in 25 years to address the Farmers Bureau. 7,000 people will show up, and they're going to be talking about what they want from the president and what he's already given them, and how, as you guys just said, and Pete, you just mentioned, they helped put the president in office probably more than any other group in the country. They believe in him. So the billionaire won over the working man and the working women. And that's going to be the theme today.
Right.
And the state of Tennessee went for Trump 60 to 40. Brian, we're going to be checking in with you a little later on to try that sweet potato pancake.
No, it's just me that's going to be trying it because it doesn't travel well. So you're going to have to go with me on
That's
this.
right.
Brian,
Okay,
did you hear any live music over the weekend?
Did I hear any live music?
Yeah.
You're in
John
Nashville.
Rich invited me to his beautiful house to celebrate his birthday and his whiskey. He came up with whiskey. We should be working on our own liquor. I don't know, some type of cognac? Who knows? But he came up with his own whiskey, and guess what? Part of the proceeds for this whiskey go to Folds of Honor.
Oh, really?
So I felt like it was a Seinfeld episode where everybody I knew was in the same area. Redneck, I believe it's Redneck whiskey, and by the way, he's opening up another place in.
I love it.
Yeah, and by the way, he's opening up a place right on Broadway in Nashville. The guy's an entrepreneur. He's a genius, and he's really good at music.
Well,
yeah.
there you go. Well, you're in the Music City.
Redneck Riviera whiskey is what Gavin's telling us.
Correction.
The name of it is.
That works.
All right, Brian.
Yeah, Redneck Riviera, because Gavin knows whiskey, because as we know, it's usually on his breath when he comes to work in the morning.
There you go. All right.
Thanks,
Brian,
Brian.
we'll be checking in with you in a little bit.
Okay.
All right. After the president flies out of Nashville, he's going to be going to the college championship tonight.
To a big game.
Alabama versus Georgia. And we understand that apparently they're trying to work out something where the president of the United States tries to go down to the field for the national anthem.
Wow.
Now, there won't actually be any players kneeling because the players will be in the locker room for the anthem, but they're trying to work it out. If the president is not on the field, apparently he will be highlighted in some fashion.
Can you imagine that crowd is going to go crazy? I mean, this is Alabama and Georgia. They're playing in Atlanta. If the president of the United States comes out there, I have a feeling he's going to get a great reaction.
Exactly. Contrast the fans there that love him with the folks in the swamp who still surround him. And a book.
Plenty of them.
There's a book. I don't know if you know there's a book. There's a book that came out talking about Fire and Fury, about this president. It turns out a lot of anonymous sources, a lot of gossip, a lot of innuendo. But we went and rolled yesterday on the Sunday shows. A lot of people who actually work for the president came out and said, well, we work for him and we have a very different view of how he operates. Take a listen.
My personal experience, I was with the president yesterday at Camp David. I'm with him almost every day. The president is engaged. He understands the complexity. He asks really difficult questions of our team at CIA so that we can provide him the information that he needs to make good informed policy decisions.
I work with the president and speak with him multiple times a week. This is a man, he didn't become the president by accident. Was he unstable when he passed the tax reform? Was he unstable when we finally hit back at Syria and said no more chemical weapons? Was he unstable when we finally put North Korea on notice?
He's different than any other politician. I can tell you he's got the wherewithal to do things that no politician's been able to do, and in a good way.
Okay, so that's what some people who work with the president all the time in Washington, that's how they describe him. Meanwhile, you click over to some other channels, and some people on this channel as well have been critical of the president and his mental stability. Watch this.
He not only amplifies the coverage of this, but he also amplifies the questions that the book raises.
We couldn't look back a year from now and say the warning signs were there and we did not do enough.
When you hear him put out that tweet, stable genius, it's kind of like Richard Nixon, I'm not a crook. It raises serious questions about his mental capacity, his ability to process information, his impulse control.
If this book is to be believed, and I think it is credible, then it is actually quite frightening for the American people.
He is like a child. I think we've probably all written this 500 times.
It's such a predictable script. It's the former Clinton operative. It's the liberal and Joy Reid. It's the never Trumper and David Brooks, all of which have loathed this president from the beginning, all of which have gone from Russian collusion to obstruction, now to mental stability, diagnosing him, his ability to process. Can he? Oh, the guy's never achieved anything in his life, right? Never processed anything, never made anything happen. It's unbelievable.
Well, President was at Camp David yesterday, and he came out and he said, you know, they did the same thing to Ronald Reagan, and then Senator Tom Cotton said they've done this, the liberal media has done this to only Republicans. Listen.
The media made similar claims about Ronald Reagan and George Bush. What they all have in common is they're Republican presidents. And when I've worked with the president and the people around him and Republican senators, he's been an active, engaged, and effective leader.
Now, one of the main sources for this particular book was Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon came out with a statement yesterday. Some people have described it as an apology. It wasn't really an apology so much as a clarification. And what he did say was he regretted the timing because he said he didn't come out to clarify the comments regarding Don Jr. soon enough. He said Don Jr. is a patriot and a good man. He said the comments about the meeting with the Russians were aimed at Paul Manafort. He said there was no Russian collusion, and he regretted calling Don Jr. unpatriotic. But at the same time, he did not specifically apologize. I was reading online, one commenter said he essentially was trying to put a Band-Aid over a knife wound in the back of the president.
Yeah.
Well, last night, Golden Globe Awards, Seth Meyers was hosting it, and he comes out and he says, you know, back in 2011 at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, I was saying that President Trump was unqualified. Here we are. Now he is the president. So he looks at Oprah and he says, Oprah, you will never be president. You do not have what it takes, hoping, I guess, that she gets elected. Exactly. So NBC tweets this out. Nothing but respect for our future president. Hashtag Golden Globes.
Now, our president.
Now, what's interesting is that was at 8:07 p.m. Eastern.
Before
that was
she got the
during
award.
right. It was during Seth Meyers'
Opening.
His opening monologue. So clearly, it was the first time she was seen in a cutaway. But right after that, then suddenly Esquire says the same thing. W Magazine. Fox 4 Kansas City said, seriously, can't Oprah be our president? And what's interesting is she has said, and said last night, apparently she has no plans to run for president, but then the LA Times talked to her longtime companion, Stedman Graham, and he said that if the people wanted her, she would run.
She would do it.
So I'm told by the experts that there is some sort of a difference between NBC, NBC News, and MSNBC.
Right.
But if you look at all that, there sure doesn't look like there's one. If NBC is tweeting out our president about Oprah, could you imagine them doing that about any Republican ever? Steve, please.
No, they wouldn't.
No.
No? Okay.
No.
All right. Well, we're
All right, so Joe Biden in 2020 for the Democratic ticket or Oprah? What do you think? Let us know what you think, please. Friends at foxnews.com.
That's right. NBC didn't say what year she would be our future president, did they?
No, they didn't.
Just our future president. All right. Meanwhile, it's 7:11 here in New York City, and it's time for a Fox News Alert.
That's right. Good morning, guys. We are following some breaking news, so let's get right to that. A sheriff's deputy in Washington state killed while responding to a suspected home invasion. The Pierce County Sheriff's Office says he was shot by a man during a foot chase in Frederickson. That's about 40 miles south of Seattle. One suspect on the loose at this hour and is considered armed and dangerous. The sheriff with an emotional call to end the violence against police.
This is something that happens too often nationally. This is something that is wrong. This is something that attacks our civic fabric. They put themselves at risk for everybody else, and too often they are harmed in the process.
Another suspect was found dead. No word yet on how he died. We will keep you updated. With lawmakers returning to work on Capitol Hill, President Trump now ready to tackle one of the key issues he has long promised to fix.
The nation of China is responsible for almost half of America's trade deficit.
Politico reporting that the commander-in-chief will likely lay out his vision to fix U.S. trade with China, which could include imposing new sanctions. But a White House official telling Fox News just moments ago that it's premature to discuss any penalties. Trump has long accused the nation of unfair practices, recently suggesting China illegally sold oil to North Korea. Well, excitement for President Trump's fake news awards is so off the charts that, guess what, we have to wait another week to find out who won.
It's all fake news. It's phony stuff. It didn't happen. It's fake news. Fake news. Fake news.
President Trump announcing the delay on Twitter, writing, quote, the fake news awards, those going to the most corrupt and biased of the mainstream media, will be presented to the losers on Wednesday, January 17th. Rather than this coming Monday, the interest in and importance of these awards is far greater than anyone could have anticipated. Guys,
I think what happened is after the book, now he's got to find a place for the author. Is
Right.
the author top? I don't think the author was probably on the list when he originally came up
Will
with
there be a trophy?
Yeah, will there be
a big loser
Will
trophy?
the losers be there to receive their awards?
Wow. Can you imagine if he did it in front
I don't
of the press, the White House press pool?
I hope he does.
All right, so
That would be
postponing
so
that
amazing.
until next Wednesday, of course, we'll be covering it. All right, the media refuses to talk about the president's accomplishments. They are too busy obsessing over that book. So what do Republicans need to do to get their message out? Matt Schlapp is here to discuss that coming up next.
And this pro golfer tries to pull off a trick shot using her caddy. Next.
Ow.
Hold on.
What?
That's such a bad idea.
Fundamentally, the core kernel of this story is questioning Donald Trump's fitness to hold the office.
As personal as you want to make this and say, oh, he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and all the rest, it's like, I think actually just emboldened him. In my interactions with him, he doesn't repeat these stories. He totally gets the policy.
That is Matt Schlapp right there. Despite attempts by conservatives like him to focus on the president's victories, the media can't stop using the new book to attack the president.
So what do Republicans need to do to get their message out? Matt Schlapp joins us now. He's the chairman of the American Conservative Union and former deputy assistant and political director for George W. Bush. Thank you, Matt, for being with us.
Less withholdings being taken out.
Yeah, you know, politics is about offense and defense. You got to aggressively be on defense when people attack you. But you're right, Steve. We got to get on offense. Those of us who support the president's agenda and talk about here. Let me bring up something that's really interesting. You know, in probably the last 20 years, we haven't had a year like we had in 2017. Right. Republicans have been trying to get drilling in ANWR for a generation. Think about that. That's pretty amazing. We've been spending a decade trying to repeal Obamacare, and we just ripped the guts out of Obamacare. And we actually dramatically changed the corporate tax structure on taxes for the first time, even before Ronald Reagan was president. I mean, this is pretty amazing stuff. And we have to keep talking about it. And the American people, when they see it hit their paychecks and when they see it affect their lives, they're going to be excited about it.
All right, Matt, thank you so much for joining us. Coming up, Congressman Brian Mast knows what it's like to fight for our country. He lost both of his legs in Afghanistan, and he's talking about, or he's trying to make history for his fellow veterans. He's going to join us live next. Here's some quick headlines for you. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley standing firm behind President Trump's call to disarm North Korea's growing nuclear program.
There is no turnaround. What he has basically said is, yes, there could be a time where we talk to North Korea, but a lot of things have to happen before that actually takes place. They have to stop testing. They have to be willing to talk about banning their nuclear weapons. Those things have to happen.
This as delegations from North and South Korea plan to hold formal talks tomorrow. And as the Iranian regime cracks down on protesters, it's banning teaching English in elementary schools now. Officials say learning the language too early would trigger Western cultural invasion. The demonstrators are upset over the Iranian economy. At least 22 people there have died. Pete?
We could use a little Western cultural invasion in our own country. But I digress. They said it couldn't be done, but after a full year of bureaucratic red tape, the country's first congressional office inside a VA facility officially opens for business. Occupying that new office is our next guest, GOP Congressman and U.S. Army veteran Brian Mast. He lost both legs in an IED blast while deployed in Afghanistan and joins us now. Congressman, thanks for being here. It's a great idea. You know, so many guys and gals who try to access the VA end up going to their congressman. You end up working on those things. You're saying, let's marry the two. Let's put our congressional office inside the VA. Where did this idea come from, and how long did it take to make it happen?
Well, like you mentioned, this has been a year in the making. This idea came to fruition because this is the biggest stack of casework that I get, is veterans and people that are providing services in the VA coming to my office saying that there's an issue. And the second biggest stack of casework that we get is those coming to our office saying, hey, these are all the positive things that are going on in the VA. And we want to be witness to that. I want to see all of the positive things that are going on there so that I can make sure that they're replicated. And I want to see all the negative things that are going on there immediately, so that we can light a fire under somebody's butt to make sure that it never happens again and make sure that the problem is fixed right away. That's
Brian,
the goal of this.
You're going to be in there on many Mondays. You yourself will be in that office. Did the VA resist this? Were they open to this idea at the West Palm Beach facility?
Well, like I said, this has been a year in the making, so there's been a lot of different hurdles to go through. When I first brought this up to Secretary of the VA Shulkin, he was very receptive to it. He started working with me on this immediately. It's just taken a lot of other things to go through, not just with the House of Representatives, but also with the VA. But we got it to fruition. This is going to be a better path forward to advocate for all of our veterans there. You know, when you look at what goes on in the VA, the tens of thousands of veterans that are there that have to get transportation just to go to the VA facility. And when they get there, they have to be pushed around in a wheelchair, or they need somebody there to assist them. To give them a one-stop shop where they can see their representative, where they can know that they're being advocated, you know, for, that's an important thing. They know when they see us there, hopefully they can see all 435 representatives in VAs across the country. Well, they're going to know that they're not forgotten.
Brian, I love that. It's a testament to what you went to Washington to go do. It's also, unfortunately, a sad testament to how many problems still exist at the VA, but the fact that you're fighting for it is huge. But as a warfighter, I have to ask you a question on some of the news of the day about North Korea. There's been a lot of talk about the president's rhetoric. Has his rhetoric around North Korea been helpful or harmful in denuclearizing that dangerous country?
I think it's helpful in this respect. North Korea knows that they're on the president's agenda, and the whole world knows that the president doesn't make empty promises. It's something that's been proven both with domestic policy and with foreign policy, and I think it's speaking directly to the heart of the leaders that are in North Korea to know that if there's going to be a red line, it's not going to be allowed to be crossed.
Good stuff. Brian Mast, you know, you live in the South. You've got to be either for Alabama or Georgia. Are you making a call for tonight?
You know, I stick with our Florida teams.
Oh, come on.
So I'm going to be supporting and cheering for whoever comes away as the victor and congratulating them. But you know, it's always painful for me to not see one of my own teams there.
You're right. No Gators, no Seminoles. Sorry about that. All right, brother. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Take care, my friend.
All right. When you think of colleges these days, you think of snowflakes and safe spaces as well as protests. Well, Alan Dershowitz says that's because we're miseducating an entire generation. So how do we fix it? It's an important question. He joins us live on set next.
We are miseducating a whole generation of future leaders on our college campuses today. We're teaching them intolerance. We're encouraging shutting down dissenting views. I am terrified, not about the present, I am terrified about 20 or 30 years from now when these young people who have been taught not to tolerate diverse views become our leaders.
Did you watch that show last night on Fox called The Wise Guys? Excellent. It was shot in Las Vegas with, among others, Dr. Alan Dershowitz. You know him, a law school professor, Harvard guy, lifelong Democrat, author of the book Trumped Up. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
How do we get to this place where college campuses are now just doing what?
Well, first, we need to encourage dissent on college campuses. You know, when I was a kid, they tried to censor us. That was Joe McCarthy. That was the right. Today, it's the hard left that tries to censor the center, conservatives, people who espouse religious values, and there aren't enough college professors who stand up for the right of dissent. The students are doing it. They're doing a great job, but they're not getting the support of the faculty. They're not getting the support of administrators.
So how do you fix this? Intolerance 101.
Well, first of all, you fight back. You never, ever allow the bullies, and that's what these are. These are bullies, some of the student groups and some of the faculty groups. They try to shut you down. They scream and yell when you speak. They protest when you come on campus. Look, I'm a centrist liberal. Every time I speak on a campus, there are protests. There are efforts, shut him down, don't let him speak.
But these students worry about retaliation, and so do some of the professors. If you go against what the school is preaching, you could get fired, you could get an F as a grade.
Well, it's not so much what the school is preaching, it's what some hard left professors are preaching. They're a minority, but they are the loudest minority. And remember, it's these radical lefties that can shut the school down. That's why they're so frightened of them.
Are they really the minority, though? Even when I was in college at Princeton, you know, 34 of the 35 history professors were registered Democrats or left of center. It's been this way, but it's gotten even more extreme. And now those graduate students, as you pointed out, baptized in hard left, are now the professors. How do you change, to her question, how do you actually go in and change this complex?
Well, first of all, the fact that there are many Democrats, I agree with that. If we want real diversity, we have to diversify the student body, diversify the faculty, not only on the grounds of race and gender, but on the grounds of ideology as well. But, you know, the liberal Democrat, like me, is the subject. They hate me more than they hate conservatives because we're the ones who might be able to influence the students, and we're the ones who they want to shut down. Yeah. And that kind of intolerance is just not accepted. And I'll tell you, it's the administrators that don't have the courage to stand up to these students because they know these students could make their lives miserable.
Well, it would be hard to have a litmus test where you've got to, you know, okay, we're going to hire a certain number of Democrats.
But there's a hidden litmus test.
Absolutely, but everybody should be for the freedom of speech, ultimately.
Absolutely. And you get now professors who are writing articles against freedom of speech. There's a professor at NYU. There's a number of professors who are now saying, what's the big deal about freedom of speech? We know the truth, capital T, capital T. Why do we need dissenting views?
You know, I might do an interview next month with Robbie George at Princeton. There are some examples of places where there is a beachhead for conservatives who are simply saying there's another view. And
liberals and conservatives have to get together on this because it's liberals and conservatives together who are being silenced by the extremes on the left, and there are some extremes on the right. The people at Charlottesville obviously didn't want to hear dissenting views, and I think it's the responsibility of liberals like me to take on the radical left. It's the responsibility of conservatives to take on the radical right, and the conservatives are doing a better
Guys
job.
at Charlottesville didn't have tenure, though.
No.
Now, the liberal left, mainstream media, they're running with this narrative now that the president is not mentally fit to be in the White House. Is there some damage there?
It's very dangerous. I've railed against the criminalization of political difference. It's getting worse. The psychiatrization of political differences is much more dangerous. It's what they did in Russia. It's what they did in China. It's what they did in apartheid South Africa. If you don't like a candidate, first lock them up. If you can't lock them up, commit him to a mental hospital. There's a professor at Yale named Brandy Lee who has been leading the campaign, saying the president's dangerous. He has access to the nuclear trigger. We may even have to confine him against his will under a kind of commitment law. Imagine how dangerous that would be. And, you know, psychiatrists are notoriously bad at predicting violence.
When he's not even their patient.
And remember that what they're looking at are things they knew about before he was elected president. Look, I didn't like what I saw necessarily, so I did what you do in a democracy. You vote for the candidate you prefer. I preferred Hillary Clinton. I knew about her. I knew about him. I made a balanced judgment. But you don't lock them up. You don't put them in mental hospitals if you don't agree with them. That's so dangerous to democracy.
Helen, so many people on the left, they're looking at the Michael Wolff book, and they're talking about how apparently some aides in the West Wing have whispered about, you know, we really should consider the 25th Amendment because the boss, not good upstairs. Explain the 25th Amendment.
25th Amendment is designed for when somebody has a stroke or somebody is unconscious. Perhaps what happened when President Wilson was president and he had a stroke, a serious stroke. It's not designed for differences about a person's emotional makeup. First, the vice president has to invoke it. Second, if the president...
Which would not happen.
No. If the president disputes it, you need 2/3 of both houses of Congress. Forget about it. It would happen only if any president, I'm not talking about a particular one, had a major psychotic break. Look, we once had a Secretary of Defense. His name was Forrester. He jumped out of the window of the Walter Reed Center. He thought the communists were coming after him. He was the Secretary of Defense. Okay, that's a proper basis for removing somebody from office, but not disagreement about policies, politics, style, even emotional approach to problems. You have a president who says, I have a bigger nuclear button than you do. You have a oh, by the way, one of the things she talks about that's a symptom of his mental illness is that he recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And so did the majority of the Senate and majority of the House. And so did I support that. Am I getting locked up next?
Yeah, we might need to.
So to quote Alan Dershowitz regarding the 25th Amendment and this president, forget about it.
Forget about it. It's not going to happen unless, you know, God forbid, any president has a stroke or anything like this. But taking what he ran on, and that's why he was elected president, and using that to invoke the 25th Amendment would undercut the basic content of the framers of the 25th Amendment.
You are a wise guy, sir. Thank you.
My mother always said to me, don't be a wise guy. Don't be a wise guy.
You were last night. You were last night.
For an hour.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's hand it over to Jillian, who has some breaking news for us.
That's right. We are following some breaking news right now happening not too far from where we are in New York City. This is a Fox News alert, and you are looking live at Trump Tower here in New York, where there is a fire on the roof. The fire department responding, and you can see in these live images the smoke rising from the tower. There are reports this might be some type of electrical fire. We will continue to monitor this and bring you the latest as we get it. Senator Rand Paul speaking out about the attack that left him hospitalized with 6 broken ribs.
It was sort of, I guess, a living hell for the first 4 or 5 weeks. It was really a tough go of it, but each day I feel a little bit better. You know, this last month I've been doing better.
Paul's neighbor, Rene Boucher, pleaded not guilty to assault charges after allegedly tackling the senator outside his Kentucky home in November. Paul did not speculate on motive, but raised concern over violence against politicians. He was also just feet away when Congressman Steve Scalise was shot at a congressional baseball practice last summer. A Yale professor coming under fire, claiming President Trump may force the extinction of the entire human race. Dr. Brandy Lee, an assistant clinical professor and psychiatrist at the Ivy League school, has never met our commander-in-chief, but has briefed lawmakers on Capitol Hill on his mental state. According to Lee, it's a public health emergency that needs to be responded to as quickly as possible. A pro golfer tries to impress with a trick chip shot, but her caddy ends up paying the price. Watch. That's Madeline Sagstrom trying to loft a shot over her caddy's head, but as you can see, hits him in the back of the head instead. He's okay, but maybe we would suggest investing in a helmet for next time you choose to do this. Sagstrom was trying to imitate Phil Mickelson's famous flop shot, which he does from mere inches away, but, you know, it's all in good fun, right? He's all right.
Was there alcohol involved? I mean,
probably not.
The guy's like, I'll stand in front of the ball, I'll do it.
There was in college, my roommate was a great golfer, and he hit shots out of the window, and we would close all the other windows, and it was a very dangerous idea. And he missed a couple of times, and it ricocheted all over the room.
No.
Foolish things you think of doing.
Well, then what about the people walking down below you?
Yeah, we didn't worry about that.
It's
college. It's college.
All right,
Thanks,
Jillian. All right, still had President Trump back in Washington after a working weekend at Camp David, hammering out this year's agenda with Republican leaders. Budget Director Mick Mulvaney was there. He's going to tell us what's in store for 2018. That's next.
And the president heads from the White House to Nashville later today. Brian Kilmeade is already there. He's having breakfast with friends. He's got some sweet potato pancakes on tap.
A shot of hardcore whiskey. That's how they do it in Dixie. Little red Geo stickers on.
President Trump in Washington, D.C. this morning following a working weekend at Camp David, hunkered down with, as you can see in the image, Republican lawmakers and cabinet secretaries hammering out an aggressive 2018 agenda.
So what is in store for the new year? White House Office of Management and Budget Director Mick Mulvaney spent the weekend with the president at Camp David, and he joins us now. Good morning to you, Director. Thanks for joining us.
So Good morning.
Morning.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, welcome to a balmy Washington, D.C. It's wonderful here.
It's 21 degrees there.
Right.
All right.
Okay, 2018, what can we expect? What did y'all talk about in that room?
A couple of different things. We have some immediate priorities. Obviously, we have to have a funding bill by the end of this month to keep the government open, and we'll do that. We also spent a good bit of time talking about DACA. I think that's been fairly widely reported. And then we also talked about the other things we'd like to try and accomplish this year. The president and many folks in the Senate especially are interested in talking about an infrastructure bill. We'll continue discussions on that. The House is interested in trying to figure out a way to put work requirements into welfare reform. That's absolutely critical. We're running out of workers. The economy is so good. We need more people to go back to work. So it was a very productive meeting, and I think it'll be a good year.
Mick, how bright is the red line on the wall for DACA? The wall either on the visa as well as chain migration and the visa lottery program. The Democrats, a lot of bluster about how committed they are to DACA. How firm will this president fight for that wall?
Two different pieces on that. Number one, there is $1.6 billion in the request for this year. That's the 2018 funding bill that we have to take up before the end of January. The president is absolutely committed to that. That's part one. Part two, which is the larger wall, that $1.6 billion doesn't build the whole wall, obviously. There's about $18 billion to finish the southern border security. The president is absolutely committed to having that as part of a larger DACA agreement. So it's really two pieces, $1.6 billion for some money for some wall this year, and then a larger agreement for the entire wall, for the entire border security package as part of DACA.
Okay, so you're huddled with Republicans. The Republicans are all on the same page, but Mick, you know the Democrats are going to try at every opportunity, including this potential government shutdown, to try to get a DACA deal because they feel that's their leverage if the president wants the wall, wants to keep the government open, wants to do anything, they got to deal with DACA.
Yeah, and let's remember why we even have to incorporate the Democrats into this discussion. The House would be relatively easy to pass a bill to fund the government without addressing DACA, but we have to have 60 votes in the Senate, which means we have to have Democrat support. I always laugh when the Democrats say we don't want to shut the government down because the next word out of their mouth is always but. There are some folks in the Democrat Party who are interested in shutting the government down over DACA. Again, I do not think it's going to come to that.
Are there Democrats interested, though, in collaborating, in getting to 60? Because there's been so much investment in resistance. Will they not be seen as complicit or collaborators in the Trump agenda if they're willing to vote for something that would in any way benefit this president?
That's the real question, isn't it? I mean, when we hear them say, oh, they want to work on a bipartisan basis, but the real question is, are they willing to even consider giving this president any success at all? They're so heavily invested in obstruction. You see what they're doing on our nominees. You see what they're doing on judges. Can they do anything thing that could allow Donald Trump to claim success. I don't think their leadership can. I don't think the folks who are high up in the party can. Maybe some of the rank-and-file senators who are worried about re-election might.
All right. Mick, before you go, I know you talked about a legislative agenda for 2018. I'm sure the president talked a little bit about that book.
He did. I mean, it's obviously false. I talked to the guy for about half an hour. I remember talking to him in March. I think he put 2 sentences about me in the book, both of which were inaccurate. And it made me wonder, if I talked to the guy for half an hour and he only put 2 sentences in, my guess is everything else I said was not consistent with that preconceived narrative that he wanted to write. That book was written long before he had talked to anybody. He's just out trying to sell books, and it's a bunch of trash. But, you know, that's journalism these days, perhaps.
Sad state of affairs. All right.
Not on every channel, not on every outlet. So we appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Great to see you.
All right. Meanwhile, the media won't stop obsessing over the book trying to take down the president, but CIA Director Mike Pompeo is firing back with some fury of his own. Hear from him in about 11 minutes.
And the president heading to Nashville today, but our own Brian Kilmeade, he's already there having breakfast with friends, possibly some sweet potato pancakes.
You do.
They actually watch the news.
He said he wanted to meet you. He said he wanted to go to school.
Well, today our president is visiting Nashville for the second time since becoming president to outline his economic roadmap for rural America in his first big policy address since tax reform passed.
So what do the voters think? Brian Kilmeade is at the Pancake Pantry in Nashville. He was serving up food even though he is not wearing a hairnet. Brian, good morning.
Yeah. Right. No, I promise not. They don't want me serving, although I have deep waiter experience. We've been over that at Bennigan's. I still have the outfit in case of emergency if the whole thing with television goes south, which it could, let's be honest. It's time to meet the DeSonia family here at the Pancake Pantry. They've been here very patiently waiting. This is Stan. This is Cecilia. I want you to meet Marina over there, Natalia over there, and, of course, Levi over here, who is gotten a Secret Service pin from the last Trump rally he was at. Stan, you actually are captain on a ship.
Correct.
So how has this whole economy affected you, the previous administration and the one now?
The moratorium on drilling had a huge impact on the company. Deregulation, opening up offshore drilling right now, is promising.
And in fact, you wouldn't say it, but you said it, Cecilia. He would help cap the deep. His ship was used capping the Deepwater Horizon, right?
That's right.
You actually used in the movie?
Yeah, his ship that he was captain of at the time, they used that for the movie.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah. So here you are in Nashville, Tennessee. The president's going to be here a little bit later. And you said if I lent you $250, you would go see him today. $250 a ticket is a lot.
Right, so we need 500. Kids are free.
The kids are free. That's fantastic. So you are a big fan of Fox and Friends. And how do I know that? Because you guys have prepared. Am I right, Marina? You prepared something for us. Levi, have you prepared something for us? Natalia, have you helped out? Okay, let's see it.
What do you got? Open them up, Levi.
This is very exciting.
Ooh, don't rip it.
We have gotten awards prompted by the President's Awards. It's going to be next week. So we have won the Greatest President Award, President Donald Trump. He gets this. This goes right to his library. And over here, this is what is this?
This is the Fair and Balanced News Award. Word to Fox and Friends.
Right, and there is no runner-up. Guys, thanks so much. And now it's official. You can eat. All right, I want you to meet John Smith and Jason Michaels. First off, John, do you think Oprah could be president? Because last night the Golden Globes seem to have gone so well for her. There's a big push for it. Would you vote for her?
Absolutely not.
Why?
No, sir. I'm ready to re-elect the commander-in-chief that we've got now.
Does it bother you, the Michael Wolff book that says he walks around repeating himself?
Absolutely does bother me. It's all fake news, and I'm just not into it.
Right. Yeah. So John, what do you do?
I'm a small business owner. I opened a small funeral home, Smith Family Funeral and Cremation Services, about 5 months ago.
And how is this new tax plan going to help small business like yours?
It's going to help huge. We offer discounted services for families to help them out, and this new tax cut is going to help us pass on those savings to the family, enabling us to continue keeping the pricing low for the families.
All right, I want you to meet Jason Michaels. Jason, you are a magician.
Yes.
How does the magic world affected by Trumpism?
How's the magic? Well, it's almost a magic trick all in itself, isn't it?
Right.
It's
like a brand new ideas. So then different from the last administration. So it's like an appearance.
Right. And this is, by the way, this is his book. Go out and get it. He also gives a great TED Talk. These guys overcome Tourette's, and he's a fantastic musician to do so. Hey, and don't forget about Pete.